Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. Today we're joined by Stuart Thompson, who's a solution consultant, and Ian Marshall, who's Customer Success Director, both for EMEA and both from Reflexis, who are now part of Zebra Technologies, for those that weren't aware. Hi guys, how you doing?
Really good, thank you. You?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Really good as well.
Good. So we're going to have a bit of a tour around today. We're going to talk about retailers being agile, how critical is it in the current environment, delve into a bit of AI, machine learning, look at frontline employee communications, and for me, always been the holy grail in retail, task compliance. So I think we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. Be interesting to get your thoughts and clearly hear how Reflexis are helping in all those areas. But before we dive in, Ian, we'll start with you. You're the Customer Success Director EMEA for Reflexis. Just tell us a bit about yourself, a bit of background on where you've worked and how you've landed in that role.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So before I came to Reflexis nearly 3 years ago, I worked in retail myself for about 18 years. I worked for Toys R Us and 11 years of that as a store manager. So lots of retailers, ex-retailers work within Reflexis, gives us that really good insight into our customers and the challenges they're having. My role within Reflexis is to work with customers that have been with us for a while, ensuring they're getting the best return on investment from the system, keeping them up to date with all the latest products and news from Reflexis, and just making sure they're getting an overall really good experience of our product.
Brilliant. Always love speaking to a fellow retailer at heart. So yeah, when I first started working in DIY and managing DIY, there was a big Toys R Us store on the retail park in Shrewsbury, which is now a Home Bargains, I think. So yeah, close to my heart, Miss Jeffrey the giraffe. One of those ones where, unfortunately, I think online got the better of them, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a story about that is that a lot of the stores now have turned into these sort of Home Bargains, B&M. So, the buildings haven't gone to waste and kept the employment in the area. And some of my ex-employees have gone to work for these other retailers as well, which is great news.
Stuart, how did you land in Reflexis?
So much like Ian, I'm also a career retailer. So over 20 years in retail. So I started on the shop floor, worked my way up to regional management, and then ended up in store operations in Homebase for 8 years, with my last role being a store communications manager. So being the gatekeeper between all communications between head office and stores. So I've felt lots of the pain of the things we're going to be talking about today. And I joined Reflexis just under 2 years ago. So I help our prospective customers identify their pain points and which areas of the Reflexis platform we can help resolve those with.
Cool. So yeah, a good schooling in retail is DIY. It's my background, focus and do it all before boot. So yeah, it's the tricky end of retail DIY. I think it's not particularly glamorous. You've got loads of SKUs, 30, 40,000, ranging from screws and nails through to sheds, greenhouses, slabs. Yeah, it's not well regarded from a service point of view. I think it's getting better, but certainly in my time, which is now 15 plus years ago, I wouldn't change it, but it was hard work and really taught me the harsh end of retail, let's say. It's not glamorous.
I totally agree with you there. Yeah, definitely.
Retail talk today then, that's cool. I like that. I think we're in for some good stuff. Clearly the world's been a really, really strange place for the last 9 or so months, and I am sure will continue to be for the next 9 or so months, unfortunately. We've seen lots of retailers, and we've talked about it on various podcasts, being really, really agile. So spinning up things like home delivery or partnering with Deliveroo in days rather than weeks. So from your point of view, and let's start with you, Ian, why is being agile critical for retailers to help them respond to kind of current challenges? And I think that there's always uncertainty in the world, but the heightened uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thinking about when I worked in store and thinking how, we would have dealt with this at that time. And you really hit the nail on the head there with that massive change in shopping habits, where people have gone from people never even been on a computer or even on a mobile phone, gone from suddenly having their supermarket delivery coming to their home. And again, like with things like a supermarket, for example, they still have the same challenges before that they were having before COVID. They had, the price wars, the diminishing market share that some of them were having, competing with the discount retailers. And, they've had to be really agile on this point, because if they didn't, they would really, really lose that market share even more than they were before. Like you said, there's been some real pushes in technology. You've seen some places around the world, in America and Australia, the little Amazon bots that sort of drive around the road delivering shopping. And I think my point of view, and talking to some of our clients, I think that the COVID crisis has actually pushing retail technology even further and further than expected. So we're expecting like a 10-year kind of technology window is going to be compacted down into 2 or 3, I think, with that. So they've had to be agile to maintain profits and market share, essentially.
And Stuart, have you got anything else to add to that?
If I put my hat on in my old role before I joined Reflexis, and thinking about all the colleagues I was responsible for communicating with, I think the main thing is at the moment is that everything's so fluid. It's very uncertain. So, I live in the Midlands. I live in Leicester. We're locked down still, partially at the moment, and we have been for several months. And obviously, various areas of the country are dipping in and dipping out of various local restrictions. And I think about how difficult that would be if I was in my old role, to be able to make sure that I was clearly communicating those changes to the frontline colleagues. It's a really difficult thing to do. And obviously, as well as keeping the customers safe, you want to make sure that the colleagues are safe and are feeling engaged and protected as well by their employers.
Some of the things you both talked about there are clearly the way that people are going to have to carry on adapting. There's going to be this compression in innovation, which will be interesting to see cost of that impact. I think as ever in retail, and I'm sure you both have seen it, quality of rollout to colleagues in store. And then Stuart, you just touched on the whole point of it's forever changing, local lockdowns, things moving. How do retailers typically communicate to frontline employees? I mean, how did you do it in your time at Homebase, Stuart?
So I think it's amazing, thinking about my previous role and obviously speaking to the customers that we do in our roles, how manual the communication still is, even in large retailers. So telephone still plays a massive role in communication and certainly chasing up communications. Email was my main point of sort of rollout for communications in my old role. We didn't have a system to be able to do that. So you have this multi-channel approach where basically you have a bit of a scattergun of communications being fired at various levels of stores, colleagues, etc. And then you also have people then chasing those up or resending them. And it makes it really difficult for the end colleague to understand exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and I think back to my DIY world, managing stores, and the comms would be, well, it started as a blue bag on a Friday and then moved to email. But there was multiple points or bottlenecks. So if it was my day off, did my leadership team do it? We had, 40 colleagues. Some of those be part-time, some only Saturdays, some only Sundays, some only evenings. How did we know they'd all read it? Because once we'd done our brief, it probably got pinned to a notice board and we assumed they'd look at it. Some would, some wouldn't. How do you keep it up to date? Ian, this stuff must be evolving. What are you seeing in terms of tech maybe that Reflexis have or general tech around this whole removing those bottlenecks and providing feedback to either central users or store managers, regional managers, area managers, that people are actually consuming and understanding this information?
Absolutely. I mean, we were quite fortunate. We were already in the process of developing our own kind of chatbot that integrated with our task manager system, and fortunately, it all kind of came together nicely when the COVID crisis came along, and many of our clients picked up on this and have implemented it or in the process of looking at it. The WhatsApp groups and things like that when I think back to how I was when I was a manager, you guys talked about it then a little bit, where I was in a WhatsApp group with the store, with my managers, with my store manager colleagues across the area, with my area manager. And I used to feel like I'd never have a day off. I used to feel like I knew more about what was going on in the store than when I was actually in it. Hugely invasive. But at the time, it felt like the norm to me. Now I've come away from retail, I kind of understanding how invasive it was, and the system that we've developed allows the end users to be part of these kind of ad hoc communications that I just talked about there, which were very, very difficult to get to the end users' phone calls, WhatsApp groups, and it takes their information from the MyWork system, which is our task manager system, and it uses the hierarchy where they sit, so they can they can be communicated to. It does work very similar to WhatsApp. I'm not going to lie about that. But actually, that invasiveness of having to give your mobile number away isn't there. The user can turn it off. They can log out if they're on holiday. They're not getting all these pings when they're sat at home. But also, I think one of the biggest points I want to make about communicating is that traditionally communications, like the WhatsApp groups, which I know are a problem for a lot of people out there, it's just the unfairness of it. I mean, I used to have a group of employees in one that wanted to be part of that. And it was very easy for me to say, hey guys, I've got some shifts coming up this week. Who wants it? They'd be like, yes, please, yes, please. And yet actually the people that didn't want to be part of that group were being treated quite unfairly because they weren't given that information. And also you'd find just how it naturally would work that these people that were in your WhatsApp group were finding out information before other people in the store. And again, that was really unfair. So this system here that we have allows employees to choose to be part of a group. They can be part of a channel where they subscribe to things that they want to hear about. So best practice. I know one of our clients uses it for their charity work, health and safety, latest COVID, all this kind of stuff all comes under this one product. Absolutely fantastic. And the feedback we've been getting from our teams are from the stores that are using it. This is exactly what we wanted. We're managing to get rid of all these WhatsApp groups that aren't corporate sponsored. And I'm sure you guys are the same. Stu, we talked about this. The amount of times you have issues with what somebody said in a WhatsApp group, trying to take action against those people was just an absolute nightmare. Whereas this really does get rid of that pain and those bottlenecks in communication.
Yeah, very much, Ian. I think my time as store comms manager, we had a real fight against WhatsApp, and we actually ended up giving up in the end because unfortunately we didn't have anything to replace it with, and the pain that it caused us was just about outweighed by the good that it did by trying to get the message down, because we didn't have the right system to do that. I think that the fact that you can opt in, it's that thing about work-life balance. You want to be well communicated with, but you don't want to feel obliged to have your work life with you at all points, and that's what QChat does.
Yeah, and we see in lots of our study work, pre and post lockdown, WhatsApp appears in terms of an activity, certainly for the managers being involved. And back to your point, Ian, as a store manager, if we're doing a role study, so looking at how they spend their time across the day, they could be in 5, 6, 7 WhatsApp groups, one for the area, one for the region, one for the division, one for the store, one for fellow store managers, one for their leadership team in store. And it always strikes me, and we have this recurring conversation with the senior teams and the boards when we present back of, one, it's unregulated, like you say, so any inappropriate comments, photos can be taken back to the workplace because that's where it's been born out from. As a business, you might feel good because it's free, but actually, how do you know that I don't go and work for a competitor and I'm still in some of those groups and people are sending pictures of latest offers or briefs or confidential information? So free's fine, not always best, but actually the other side of it is back to the other points you made around being pinged all the time. So actually, when is it too much for a colleague, or when does it become an interference in work-life balance that I don't want to know these messages anymore? I don't want to be part of it, or I only want to consume that when it's my choice. And if I choose to do it in front of the telly at an evening, that's my choice, not being forced on me by the company. WhatsApp, and there's others out there that are free. People have fallen into the free trap, unpoliced, unregulated, really difficult, like you say, Stuart, to turn off once it's in there. And what you don't know is always the stuff that blindsides you, isn't it? So because you don't know it's happening or you can't see it, that's the stuff when you've got a problem. It's really difficult to go back and regulate. So interesting. It's evolving. You guys have got that there. So you touched, I think it was Ian, on task. And for me, that's always been the holy grail in retail. So how does this integrate with task and work together? And what kind of things have you been seeing from a task and compliance point of view have been driven out of different behaviours from COVID?
From a chat and task point of view, we've got some really interesting, exciting future plans with the integration part from task into the chat, where users can create a chat group based around a task, which then allows them to just discuss those tasks in a little bit more detail with people that don't necessarily need to see all that kind of information. For those really important tasks, obviously you're getting that real up to the minute, I'm taking that product off sale, I'm just checking the back now, on those really, really important things. So we are seeing a massive evolvement of a product which is actually new and actually fantastic as it is, years. And we've just got loads of plans for the future to integrate those systems even further. And they both fit around our Reflexis One application, which centres around the My Work core, and these kind of chat and other applications we do all fit around this, where they're fully integrated. You can go seamlessly from one app to the other. You haven't got to come out of it and go into the other app. So that's where that kind of thing's heading. Everything centered around this central My Work, which is the task and project engine of our application, really.
And that's interesting because, again, I think recent times there was the whole bring your own device era, which I suppose didn't take off from a colleagues counting stock on their own devices, but clearly all the kind of comm stuff has. But again, we work with lots of retailers and hospitality where there's an app for payroll, there's an app for scheduling, there's an app for task, there's an app for comms. And as a colleague, I've got 4, 5, 6, 7 different things, different logins, different looks and feels. So that's interesting that you brought that all together under kind of one framework. So
yeah.
So you, as a colleague, I get a look and feel. And I assume, tell me if I'm wrong, as you evolve those products, and look and feel evolves all the time. But actually, from a colleague's point of view, it's still all in that one.
Yeah,
go-to
absolutely.
place.
That's always been our ethos, and we have somebody in our workplace called Susan, and Susan is our typical store manager who. And our whole ethos is to make life simple for Susan. So we really concentrate on this end user experience to make sure that end user isn't confused, isn't feeling overwhelmed by everything. And we found that this one place for everything really does tick all those boxes. And everything we do is always done with Susan in mind. So whether it's our workforce management system, QChat, QMail, we've got lots of additional products that all center around this one landing page where Susan can go in the morning, or she can go in whenever she wants to, and she gets a really good picture of everything in her store, whether it's the right people are in, somebody's not turned up for their shift, there's an urgent task that he's doing, one of her freezers has gone above a certain temperature and she needs to go and find out why. And that's worked really well for us and has been part of our massive success around our My Work One solution.
We said we'd touch on AI and machine learning. That's probably a good point then. So how is AI machine learning going to make Susan's life either easier in the future, or as a retailer help her enhance the performance of a store, or help her focus on the things where there's most benefit or return or compliance stroke safety? Probably start with you, Stuart, on that one.
Yeah, so I think that the thing that's happening, and we see it more and more with our customers, is this, the stores, now and into the future are being more connected. There's more Internet of Things devices. There's a lot more data available. But the difficulty is as to what to do with that data. It's all very well having a load of data from different systems. If you can't do anything with it, then that's the challenge. And you can have some really great people back at maybe head office doing a number crunching, but you're looking at things in retrospect then. What AI and machine learning can do is it can consume that data from various different systems and inputs and start to tell you about things that are happening in the moment. So it'll start to identify trends in your store, positive or negative, that you may want to take an action on today, in the hour, in the minute. And that's something that traditional sort of data analytics can't do. AI and machine learning can do.
And I think there's always this, back to the Terminators films probably, that the machines are going to take over. AI and machine learning aren't going to replace Susan, are they? That's not the plan.
It's just there to make Susan's life easier. And essentially, what we want to do is help the business have the store manager on the sales floor, not in back offices or storerooms, or getting involved in all of those little, like Stu said, all those little manual little bits of information that keep coming through. It's all to make Susan's life simpler and give those manager hours back on the shop floor. I think that was my biggest frustration as a store manager. I wanted to be on the shop floor. I didn't want to be in the office. I didn't want to be wading through paperwork in back offices. We didn't have task manager. We were very much a pen and paper organisation. That was my frustration. And I could tell, like on days off, that when I went into the store, I could tell how much time the managers had spent on the shop floor, bearing in mind on the sales and the standards and just that overall feel of the store. And I could tell they'd had a really busy back office day with lots of activity rather than being out there driving sales and standards across the store. So that's our whole ethos behind everything, making it simpler and getting that store management team out on the shop floor doing what they should be doing.
With the move almost away from information and turning that into insights and actionable insights, I think back to my time running stores. In that role you described before, I think it was Stuart as the gatekeeper. So looking at what the centre's trying to push down to the stores, is there the right budget for it? Have they got capacity to do it? Who authorised it? I assume in that there'll be some really neat stuff where you can start to do some analysis. Buyers will allocate stock to stores without going through retail. Each store will get 2 pallets of something. It's workload. They've got to price it. They've got to put it out. They've got to do all the bits around it. But those are the kind of things that creep through the net, aren't they, in retail? And it only takes 2 or 3 different buying departments to do that. And all of a sudden you've got 8 to 10 pallets, a load of workload of other things that, back to your point, maybe keep people on the floor, but doing the wrong things. It's not serving the customer. It's not developing the team. So I assume all those type of things you start to get at a central level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I felt all that pain, all the things you just described there, are all things that I experienced in my old job where, people are trying to circumvent me to try and get things to stores. Ian was talking about with my work, at an end user point of view, it's a personalized and prioritized to-do list, basically, with all of your various communication channels and tasks in one place. But at a higher level, when you look at it from a head office point of view, if I had it in my old role, it would allow me to stop and have a look at every single piece of information that wanted to get to stores and understand it, interrogate it, maybe go and speak to that team and understand why they wanted to push that work towards a store before it actually got to the incoming screen of the end user. So Susan, as Ian was saying, but also we have a capacity planning module as well. So you can start to actually have specific capacity allocated to stores based on their square footage, for example. So you know exactly how many hours of work you have available to allocate to a store that week. And then Reflexis can then alert you to say, if you allocate this to the store, you're going to start pushing them over their allocated hours for the week. So it's got that intelligence in the background.
Yeah, and then clearly you'll have all the metrics, won't you, from the staff plans, so from the workforce management components of the schedule, and then what actually happened with the clocking in from the time and attendance solution. So you complete the loop, don't you, in terms of planned, actual, and then all the capacity stuff that was dropped in that maybe meant they overspent, but that might be a good overspend because they've got the sales return, or actually you're just pushing extra work in and they're having to either spend more money to do it, or things like standard service, bigger queues start to happen in the operation, which are potentially invisible because you only see those when you're physically in the store.
Yeah, definitely. AI machine learning isn't there, as you said, to replace anyone. It's there to give you that extra piece of information that you may have never noticed before. So store managers will always have a great intuition to run their stores, but having AI or machine learning will help them get that that extra 5-10% out of their store they may have not done before.
Some of the feedback I've had from our customers is sometimes that task manager actually feels like you have another manager with you at all times, doing that kind of prioritization for you, and having like a shadow manager walking around with you saying, "Oh, don't forget this needs doing," where you wouldn't have got that kind of insight before. So I always think that's a really good analogy of how our system helps and supports store colleagues, really.
So it's Susan's big brother. I was going to say you could call it Simon. I was going to say you could call it Simon, but no, don't.
Simple to Steve.
Yeah, not Stuart, because we've got Stuart on the pod.
Yeah.
So yeah, Steve, something beginning with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting, isn't it, how that's all going to evolve, and there'll be a load of stuff clearly we've not even thought about yet, which comes through. Let's just finish off then talking about Zebra technology. So you guys are kind of married now, so Reflexis and Zebra. And in the workforce management arena, there's been, over the last 4 or 5 years, lots of acquisitions and mergers, depending on how people want to budget up. But this one's quite interesting because this is a hardware company. Lots of people, I'm sure, will maybe not know they've seen them, but if you go into big supermarket chains and other big brands, you'll see people with handheld devices scanning, shopping, when they're picking for home delivery or counting stock on shelves. A lot of those are Zebra devices. And clearly Reflexis is a software company. So this is a marriage of hardware and software. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really pleased you used the word marriage there. It is a bit of a match made in heaven, really, where it's a natural kind of, I wouldn't say an acquisition. It's more of a sort of digital partnership that we've come across. And we worked with Zebra for many years. They've always been a work partner of ours. It does feel like a very natural kind of relationship development. And the feedback from our customers has just been phenomenal, just wholly positive. The vast majority of our customers are Zebra users, and they know the quality of the hardware that they provide, and they're aware of everything else that Zebra do and the other areas of the industry where they work in. And to have us working both together, like sort of one voice for the customer, is just fantastic. And and Zebra is very, very similar ethos to us. End user first, the quality of the product they make. I've seen our product being used on Zebra devices for years, and like I said, it's just overwhelmingly positive, and the customers are excited to see what's coming next from us. And with Zebra, there's a lot of pressure on us now. Actually, now we've got this absolutely fantastic partnership, and the customers are sort of sat waiting now to see what we're going to do with it. But I'm sure it's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think the tech will drive the hardware, if that makes sense. But I also think the hardware will drive the tech because of how it will evolve and people will use it. Means that the size or the shape or the structure of the devices may change, but also, again, how people want to use it may mean that from a solution point of view, you change the UI and the way of using it. So I think it will be really interesting in the next couple of years how you both challenge and drive each part of that business to keep evolving. And I'm sure your customers will keep you on your toes and help you with that. But I think if we did this again in 2-3 years, we'd look back and you probably made some massive strides that as independent companies may not have happened because it's now a marriage. You're kind of going to drive each other. So I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. I think it's a really interesting one to watch this.
Stuart and I, who are very close to the product anyway, we're just so excited for what's coming, and we're really interested to see what's coming next, the evolving of our relationship.
So a good time to connect to you guys and keep in touch. So where's the best place for people to reach out if they want a further conversation, Ian? Is it collecting on LinkedIn or website or both?
Yeah, more than welcome to reach out to myself on LinkedIn. And my email address is ian.marshall@zebra.com. So Jude's is the same, stuart.thompson@zebra.com as well. So yeah, more than happy to people to reach out if they want to hear more about what's coming and what we can do and how we're helping our customers through not only the COVID crisis, but how we're helping them every single day complete their tasks and schedule their workforce and make sure they're compliant. Absolutely everything you could expect within a retail unit, we're doing and helping them with those things.
Yeah, also our website's a really great place to look as well, reflexisinc.com, where we've got lots of white papers and case studies of our customers across the world as well.
Final question to you both, and just before we wrap up, and let's start with you, Stuart. What's the best bit of business advice you've ever been given?
Well, that's a good one. Consider the end user. I think having spent so much time sending communication down from a head office to an end user point of view I think I've got the benefit, like sort of 75% of the Reflexis team have, of working in retail previously. So lots of us have worked in a sort of shop floor, customer-facing environment. So it's just to think back and put yourself in the shoes of the end user and make sure that you're doing everything you can to make it as easy to use as possible. Hence why we have Simple for Susan and Reflexis.
Ian, same question for you. You've had a bit of time to think about it.
Yeah, I know. Not on the spot as you, Stu. Always strive to be the best, and don't accept second best. And if you think something's not right, question it. Don't just go with the flow. Go and always go out and question if there's something you don't understand or you think can be done better. And did that many times within Toys R Us, and hopefully help the business there, believe it or not. But yeah, that was the best advice I was always given, and I still do that today. I will always question something if I feel it's not quite right.
Brilliant. Love those two guys. Listen, it's been a pleasure to talk shop. Don't get to do it that often.
Yeah.
Look after yourselves, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks, Stuart.
Simon.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.